I went and worked for this company, and I kind of like BS my way in. And they were like, hey, come in for an interview and set up the press. Because I told them I screen printed before. And they're like, all right. So I saw a guy over there print manually, and I just kind of followed the lead that he had. It was a one color.
Had you screen printed before that time?
No, never pulled a squeegee.
So you lied.
Totally. But I got the job.
No, you faked it until you made it.
Exactly. So it actually worked out because the artist, him and I kind of hit it off, and they were, back then we had 99.1, which was an alternative station, and they were playing, some really good music. I was like, hey, it's awesome. And him and I hit it off, and he knew I couldn't print, right? But he hired me, which was awesome.
Hey, welcome back to Let's Talk Shop. I'm this episode's host, Ryan Moore, here with Jeff Fiorucci, the Stampinator. From Slant Engineering right here. Jeff's a great screen printer. I'm really looking forward to hearing his story about getting into screen printing, how he invented the Stampinator, tips, tricks on both business, operations, and how to make your prints better, automate your transfers, which is kind of your tagline. So what brings you out here to Ryonet?
Ooh, shop talk. I don't know. I just wanted to come out and check out the facility and see what you guys are all about, what's going on, and why not do this right before Thanksgiving?
Well, one cool thing that we have restarted this year is classes. And we have a class going on. So one of the reasons I know you came out is to demo the manual Stampinator, which is the Stampinator M, I think you call it.
Yeah.
Which is a new product that is a game changer for manual screen printers. Kind of Ryonet's core niche, bread and butter. Ever since we brought on the rotary Riley Hopkins press in 2005, we've sold thousands of those presses, and really those presses have helped so many businesses, thousands of businesses, start and grow their business. A lot of them are in use. A lot of them have been handed down, sold, resold. A lot of them are sitting over in the corner. So excited to show this class after this session, actually, how to use that and how to use it for both making your screen prints better, but also making your transfers automated, like going much faster when it comes to the world of DFT and stuff. So
with the class, we're going to demo the manual stamp, show them matting the fibers, curing the underbase, as well as curing on press. And, in the new world of DTF transfers, it's awesome to change out your pallets, which actually we're not doing. We're just putting a top cover on with sponge rubber and going right into DTF, which is pretty amazing.
We'll get into the transfer side of things, especially when it comes to that, because I know there's specific parameters that you have to do to be successful transferring it on a manual press. But kind of just walk backwards, and how did you get into screen printing? What was the first shirt you ever printed? Like, how long have you been in this industry for?
God, I feel like I've had this conversation with a few other ones. We did. So I got into the business. I was right around 17, 18, big into mountain biking, and started a brand called Free Ride Fuckwear. That was the idea.
Beep.
Free Ride Fuckwear. Right. So the best part about it was all product that we were getting from Goodwill. So we go to Goodwill and we buy the old man pants, cut them off, and just put the Free Ride logo right on the left leg, right?
And you would screen print that?
Yeah, in the beginning we were spray painting stencils, right?
Okay.
So then I was like, you know what, I'm going to look into getting a job in the screen printing. So
it's funny how we all get into garment decoration. I never spray paint this stuff, but we did an event last week at Printing United at the Punk Rock Museum.
Yeah.
It's all like these punk rock jackets, and like going through with the team and analyzing like what halftone line is. I'm like, that's a spray paint.
Yeah, right.
Totally a spray paint stencil.
Hey, look, it worked. And the venues we were doing, I was a big Charles rider, and we'd go to we do a weekend event, and I'd sell between $600 and maybe $900 worth of product. Because back then we weren't wearing spandex.
It was all just random stuff.
All random stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then I had found a company. They were printing T-shirts for us, and I decided that I'm going to get a job. Well, back then, we had Google that kind of came out.
What year was this, by the way? Google.
I don't know, the early 90s, right? So you're looking at 95,
okay.
Right? AOL dial-up, you got mail, right?
Yeah, okay.
So you couldn't just go and Google and go to YouTube and find how to print a T-shirt, right? So I went and worked for this company, and I kind of BS my way in. And they were like, hey, come in for an interview and set up the press, because I told them I screen printed before. And they're like, all right. So I saw a guy over there print manually, and I just kind of followed the lead that he had. It was a one
Had
color.
you screen printed before that time?
No, never pulled a squeegee.
So you lied.
Totally. But I got the job.
No, you faked it until you made it.
And exactly. So it actually worked out because the artist, him and I kind of hit it off, and back then we had 99.1, which was an alternative station, and they were playing, some really good music. I was like, hey, it's awesome. And him and I hit it off, and he knew I couldn't print, right? But he hired me, which was awesome.
That's cool. Well, so what year was that, 95?
Yeah, like 95, 90, yeah, right around 95.
Okay.
And the company at the time, they were doing a lot of work for a company, Aerotech, which Steve Busciotti, who owns the Ravens, owns Aerotech.
Oh, really?
And I worked for them for about a year, and then one day the guy calls me in his office and says, hey, are you starting a screen print business? So I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about it. Because the artist did a logo for me. It was Multi-Mind Productions was the idea. And he goes, well, today's your last day. I don't want a competitor. So I left and went to Martin Screen Supply, and hence the Riley Hopkins. That's what I bought.
Wow.
That was my first manual press.
Did you buy a new one?
I bought a new one. Yeah, I maxed out my credit cards.
You had enough money to go buy. And what was it back then in the 90s?
Back then, I think it was like $2,200, right? So I maybe 18, somewhere around there. But so I bought that. I bought a flash dryer. I went to Home Depot. I built my own exposure unit, and built everything out of wood. Had a glass top. Had my lights in there. I had a vacuum that I tore apart and used the vacuum for the suction. Worked out great.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you use for the blanket?
I went to a company that was a rubber shop, and I picked up a couple of sheets of rubber, put it together.
So you're always good. You were always good at building stuff.
Yeah, it kind of worked out. Like, look, my early childhood, my father came home with 2 dirt bikes, and they were in parts. And he's like, you guys, we build these, you can ride them. And that's what we did, man. And ever since then,
Did he teach you, or did you just kind of figure it out?
I just kind of had that knowledge, that background. I got an identical twin brother. He has some amazing vehicles, rat rods that he's built.
Wow.
We're both in the Harleys, and he's built some really cool bikes, but he doesn't have kids, so he has all that time to be able to have that luxury and enjoyment. Whereas, I got the printing and art background, which is just as good.
Yeah,
in a different
that's cool.
way. So going back to Riley Hopkins was the first press I had, and then I kind of just grew from there, printing, and I had a partner. We had a brand called Just Laxton for lacrosse. We did really well with it. And from that point, I had left early 2000s. I left the company Just Extreme Graphics, and I went with the company CNA, and I was with them for about right around 17 years.
So you started your own company,
yeah,
and then you went back to work for another company? Yeah.
Well, we were going to merge, so
okay.
My partner didn't want to go, so I ended up merging. I left, he bought me out, and I went with the company. So the year I went there, they were doing like 1.2. I went in, implemented, brought in Shopworks, we put in head servers, and just really streamlined what they were doing back then. And we did about $1.3 million more that year.
Wow.
And then we had bought a company.
Double.
Yeah, we doubled pretty much. And then we were running right around like 3.5, 3.6. Then we bought a company out of PA, and we were doing close to about 5 million. And we were growing from there. We got into the resort business. We had close to 60 employees at one point. And
how many automatic presses?
We were running 4 automatics. We had, two 12-head embroidery machines, 2 6-heads, and then we had like 4 single heads.
And top out at 5 million, or did you grow from there?
Yeah, we grew. We were so at that point we were close to like 9.
Wow.
Right.
With
and
4 automatics, that's really good.
And then 2000. Well, a good portion of our business was embroidery as well.
Yeah.
And the promotional side. So we were doing pretty well with that. We had collegiate licensing, but it was a lot to manage. It was definitely overwhelming. Equipment back then wasn't the way it's made today. So it wasn't as user friendly as it was back when we had got into the industry. The chemicals, I feel like, were a little bit harsher.
Yeah.
The inks, we didn't have the non-phthalate inks. They were.
Did you go through the phthalate transition?
We did, because on some of the things with licensing and retail, we had to make sure that we were using that non-phthalate product.
Like end of the first decade of the century, or like 08, 29, or 09?
It was like right around 2010.
2010,
roughly.
yeah. That was horrible.
Yeah.
The ink was awful for like,
It was.
It went from like really good to like, you can't, like you would pull it out of the bucket like a popsicle sometimes. Like it was awful.
Yeah.
It was a really bad transition.
It was tough, but I was always a big fan of Fashion Soft or Soft Tan. And, even with the inks today, using the low cures, Fashion makes a big difference.
It does, yeah.
So from there, in 2000 where was I headed? 2008, we were in the resort business, had a partner. He got out. We bought him out, and we hit the recession that year. And it was like somebody turned the light switch off. Government had shut down. So all the national parks we were selling to, they weren't buying. They were out for like 6 months.
So what did your business go from top of 9 and what did it go down?
Back down to 5.
So almost half.
Almost half.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I know we've gone through a recent recession. I hope, we're coming out of it, especially as we head into this election. I've seen some businesses do that in this recession. Ryonet didn't really experience that recession because we were just on that path up.
Yeah.
And so we went from like 200% growth down to like 30% growth, so we definitely slowed down, but we didn't stop, and so it was weird that we definitely have felt it. And I know a lot of screen print shops, depending on where their cycle is, have felt it throughout the last couple of years.
Well, when I look at from where we were going into that recession, it was actually kind of a blessing in a way, because at that time, I had an art staff. I had 8 sales reps, and you're paying all these people more money, and you're making less, basically, or you're making the same. You're just not growing. It got to a point where we needed to do 20 million to start making more money, right?
Yeah.
And when you're slinging T-shirts and you have certain accounts that you're doing,
it's a lot of T-shirts.
It's a lot of T-shirts, right? So it was like, and then I would get these orders like 10,000 or 20,000 or 40,000 shirts, and it was just like, God, you just want to get them done, right? So you'd break them up on presses because you couldn't put somebody on that job for 5 or 6 days. They literally would lose their mind. It's just you're seeing the same print over and over and over.
Would they actually lose their mind seeing the same print over and over again?
I know I would.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's different colors, you just kind of, I mean, setups and breakdowns are good. It's fun to have like, 288, 500 pieces, maybe 1,200. You print it, a few hours later, you're doing a new job, right? So how did that work going from $9 million of sales down to $5 million of sales? How did it work when you had to downsize staff, downsize machinery? Like how did you go through that process? So
we didn't lose any equipment, but we got rid of the staff. We still had collegiate license. We were doing a lot of prep schools, bookstores. We had a lot of corporate accounts. We were doing work for PNC Bank. So if you went to PNC, you signed up for a checking account. We were the guys that supplied all the product. So we had all the inventory for any type of
promo stuff,
all the promos.
Yeah. So
USO.
How many employees did you go down to after you top of 16?
We had about 30 employees.
Okay, so cut it in half.
Yeah.
Was that hard?
Financially, when you're at that point of, making a decision financially for your company, it's hard because you don't want to let anyone go. But at the same time, you need to do what's best for your business.
Yeah.
Right. So it just made sense. And one of the benefits is we had so many screen print shops around us, we could just put out a call and say, hey, we have some employees that, we're letting go, great workers, you want to interview them. And most people found jobs, right? So it worked. But
did you do it in time?
We did.
You did it. So you saw sales go and you immediately started letting people, you didn't hold on to anyone for too long.
Yeah, as soon as the government accounts were shutting down, because that was a lot of our business, national parks. And, we were doing business up in Alaska. And then you had the cruise lines where they shut down. They weren't heading up to Alaska. And that was a big part of our business as well. So, but, trying to get product from the East Coast to Alaska we'd ship everything to Seattle. It was on a barge and it would go up to Alaska. So we had to split the freight. So a lot of times it was, pretty expensive. So you had to make sure you're shipping at least 2 or 3 skids to make it worth your while. So, but yeah, it was good. So from there, we transitioned into just a smaller staff with our sales. and our production, and we were, profitable. So it worked out.
And how long did you get, what year did you get out of that business and start doing more of your own thing? Or
So right around 2014, I had an idea for this product and had no idea if it was going to work.
This product?
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, right. So the Stampinator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I had this idea, and we were doing Under Armour transfers on backpacks. So
This was you were at your company?
At our company.
Yeah.
So we were one of the first companies to actually be able to buy from Under Armour. So we were buying 150,000 of inventory, bringing it in, and then we would go out and sell it to corporate accounts, Capital One, any big company that was wanted to
Because you're in Baltimore, on Under Armour's in Baltimore. Did you know people there to let you do that, or did you?
Yeah, but so my one partner at the time, he had a connection with Under Armour, and that's kind of how we got involved. It was
been out to the facility a few times. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
you got a guy in Baltimore who's like into Baltimore, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? So it was, so we did that for a number of years, and we were doing backpacks, and I had maybe 6 or 7 people and doing heat pressing with hat presses to do the backpack, because it was the pocket that we were putting the logo on.
Okay.
And then I was doing football crap for the Ravens, like all the side hustlers that we would do on the street corners, we'd sell to them. And then we did one.
Was that something? So you would like Ravens, not knockoffs, or like just kind of like Baltimore's awesome?
Yeah, we would do designs like Who Let the Birds Out.
Yeah.
Like any theme that was like hot, that's what we did.
Yeah.
And then we did one that had was like a Ray Lewis thing and had foil, and we couldn't put the foil in the shirts fast enough because you're printing the shirts and then you use the foil release agent.
Yeah, because Baltimore's been good for a long time in the football world, but they were really good back then.
It was amazing. Yeah. I knew every street vendor on the corner.
So you would sell them you would buy a shirt for what? What shirt would you put it on?
G500.
Okay. So Gildan 500, you buy that for like $2 or less.
Yeah.
And then you would sell it to a street vendor for how much?
9, 8, 9.
Wow. So you're right there. You're making $6, $7, and $8.
Yeah.
A shirt.
It was phenomenal.
$7 a shirt. And they would sell it for how much?
Anywhere from 15 to 20,
Is that
depending.
still a business these days?
It is. So you still have the vendors. Maryland Stadium Authority has really cracked down on who can be there and who can't.
So you have to like buy a license to go sell these shirts to hawk them on the side?
Yeah, you got to get a peddler's license, basically.
Oh.
But the interesting...
I always thought about doing that. Like back, when I learned how to screen print, like, what if, the Portland Trailblazers went to the championship? Unfortunately, they never did. Unfortunately. But,
hey, look,
like going out there and hanging your sign up. And
here's the best part about football, right? Like, I'm not a diehard sports guy. Like, I like football, but I don't know all the players. I don't get into it, right? With other teams. But it brings out all the fair weather fans.
Yeah.
Right? And it brings out Super Bowl parties, playoff parties. Everybody needs a T-shirt. So it didn't matter. You're on a street corner, somebody's going to a party, and it's like, oh, shit, I need a T-shirt for the football game, right?
Yeah.
You grab a shirt, you wear it to the game, and you're good. The one shirt we did this promo years ago. It was before I went to CNA, and we partnered with, well, we didn't really partner with 98 Rock, but we had brought out one of the DJs from 98 Rock, and we had this car dealership up on the corner, and I had taken a skid and I spray painted it real big on it, Pittsburgh Sucks T-shirts, and I had an arrow, right, and it was going down, and I nailed this thing to the telephone pole, right, that was up on the corner. And it was Jerry Chevrolet, and the guys they're calling us like, you need to get this freaking sign down. This is ridiculous. Well, we had cars just coming down to buy Pittsburgh Sucks T-shirts. It was awesome. Black shirt, purple print.
Did you do that on your own, or did you work with a vendor on that one?
No, that was on our own, right? That was with my partner at the time when we had Just 6 Graphics. And we're printing shirts and selling shirts right out of the back shop of the door, right? So we had our bay door up. We had somebody out there. People were driving up in their car, and they're like, "Hey, we need 5 T-shirts." All right. And then back then it was all cash. It was like, wow. It was so cool. It was like that was one of the coolest things. So
yeah.
But look, this business has been really good to me. I mean, it allowed me to buy a beach house and and do a lot of different things. I've been doing it. I'm 51 years old, and I've been printing shirts since I was 19.
Yeah.
When I got into this industry.
T-shirt, literally hustling T-shirts.
Yeah,
Finding any type of that. I've talked to a lot of people about that. I've obviously everyone sees that, but I've not really had a conversation with somebody that's been on the other side of making that happen. Because you're coming up with your own art, you're coming up with your own design, you're trying to skirt license law. It's something that people have to buy. You got to get your network going. It's a pretty cool little business.
Yeah, look, not to skip off of the conversation with the Stampinator, but I've always been an artist, and I'll never forget when my father was like, hey, look, where are you going to go to college? And I was like, I'm just going to print shirts. I'm going to do artwork. And he's like, what the hell? You need an education, right? You need a business degree. So I didn't do any of that, and like I said, it's been good. And going back into the heat transfers, so that year of like 2014, 15, I came out with this product that it didn't have a name yet, right? So
so what did you do? So you had backpacks to do. You're like, this stinks. It's taking way too long.
Right.
And so what was the first product? How did you make it?
First product was I went down to my buddy's shop, and he's got a machine shop and he's fabrication shop. And he's like, yeah, let's work together and figure this out. Mm-hmm. So we put one together. We built it. The first one weighed like 125 pounds. It was awful.
And what was in it?
It was basically just a metal frame with a heating element that I had taken from Hicks.
Okay.
And I used their components. I bought a heat press. I think I paid like $2,500 for it, tore it apart, and then just kind of re-engineered it for what we were doing.
Oh, wow.
I tried to reach out to a few companies to get some of their components. It didn't work out. At that time, Ryonet was like, hey, we're happy to do something with you. Been working with them ever since.
So at that time, they gave you an element, or was that for like the second one or the?
Yeah, so the second one, we had a heating element that came in.
Did the first one work?
Yeah, the first one worked really well, right?
And that's, I remember seeing that video of you transferring those backpacks.
Yeah, I still have it. Yeah, it was on an M&R gauntlet. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny because when we were doing, we did like 5,000 of them in one day. It was like, because we were hitting them at 1.5 seconds.
Like, I have something here.
Totally. And all the employees that work for me, they're like, dude, you're going to be a millionaire. Like, this is awesome, right? And it was so cool because the backpacks are slinging and the transfers are flying off. And I'm like, all right, we got to go to the vinyl adhesive transfer. Uh-huh. And that one allowed us to do like 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. And we were just cranking ahead. The girl couldn't even keep up pulling the bags off, right?
Yeah.
Because it didn't matter at this point. The bag's slinging around, that transfer was perfectly placed on the pocket.
Wow.
And that's when the product really came to life. And I realized I had something.
So, okay, you were there. You decided at some point in time to patent it. And it's on every Stampinator, the patent number. A lot of people in this industry just invent things. They don't patent them. I've never patented something, tried a few times, didn't work out. But why did you decide to do that? And was it hard?
So the idea for the patent was, I'm a screen printer, and you have all these manufacturers of equipment. And I know the industry, and I know how companies work, and they're quick to knock someone off. I felt that if I didn't get a patent, I had no chance in hell of selling this product. There was absolutely no way, because every other manufacturer was going to knock me off, right?
Ryonet could have just grab and do that.
Totally, and anyone could. They had the equipment to develop or redesign my product and have it out to market within a month, maybe two, right? And I felt like it was important to do that for myself, because not many people come up with an idea that is patentable, right?
Yeah.
And when you get a patent issued, like, that's pretty amazing, because that's one of the hardest things to do. It's
do you have it like hanging up on your wall?
No, it's stored in the file cabinet.
Yeah.
Right?
Hang it up on your wall.
It's nice. It's a nice little red gold ribbon, that's on the. It's pretty cool, right?
So was it expensive? Was it hard to do?
It was.
Because I'll tell you how many ideas that I've gotten pitched throughout the years. Yeah. Even at one point in time, I thought should do like some kind of Shark Tank show of like,
I think that would be fantastic.
Come on, pitch your idea.
It's called a pitch tank.
Yeah, pitch tank, or something like, if we like it, we'll tell you, we'll give you a manufacturing contract, or we'll hook you up with a manufacturer it's in our network. If we hate it, we'll tell you right now. Because But there's been
I think you pitched that to me on the Stampinator.
There's been some horrible ideas.
There has been.
And so there's some ideas that's like, no, that's never going to sell. But I don't even think I've seen many. There's one guy in the industry that has patented some really cool stuff. He patented actually the wax jet, one of the first people to do that with Kiwo back in the day.
Yeah.
And so, but for the most part, Rich Hoffman's another person that did a really good job. I mean, I think M&R had 200 patents.
Yeah.
Like they have patents on things that don't even work.
Yeah, exactly. Never launched it.
Yeah. Like auto unloader. Like that, wouldn't that be, I mean, auto loader. Wouldn't that be amazing to have an auto loader? Never worked, you know. I think it's expired now. Their auto loader, unloader expired as well.
Yeah,
so
it's been around for 20 years.
Yeah. So it's really cool that you did that. How much did it cost to do it?
I think by the time I was done, it was close to like almost like between 28 and 30,000 to do the whole thing.
How did you have that? Just have that money laying around?
Well, look, back then I was making really good money
because you were a partner in this business.
Yeah, we had a lot of good things going, and right at that point, when I started Stampinator, I was like, I didn't know. Well, before I get into that, how I came up with the name of the Stampinator is pretty cool. I had no name for it, couldn't think of a name. And coming home from work one night, my daughter at the time, she was like maybe 8, and she's like, Dad, I want to watch Terminator. All the boys are talking about Terminator. It's like the coolest movie,
Which, like one of the newer ones?
The first one, right?
Oh, the first one.
So we put it on the first one. As soon as it came up, Terminator, I'm like, Stampinator. And it was born. And yeah, man, it was. Then I met this guy at one point, and he was like, like the product, I don't like the name, but who knew that Stampinator was going to turn into what it is, right?
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. So
it kind of sticks with you.
It sticks with you.
Yeah.
And, look, it's important not only to have a patent, but to have a brand. Mm-hmm. And I think people out there know, the product. But it was challenging, I feel, in the beginning because a lot of screen printers were like, just another screen printer, coming out with a product like, glorified heat press on a automatic. But, it does a fantastic job. It truly does.
When I saw it for the first time, I think I saw 16 range, 2016.
Yeah.
At a Fort Worth. Was it Fort Worth show?
Yeah.
Why did you decide to go to that show? This is your first show, right?
It was, the first show. I was 10 by 10 booth. Projection screen showing all my cheaply made videos, right? But we had a shitload of people in the booth coming by watching, and I'm selling it to do transfers.
Yeah.
And nobody, back then it's like nobody did a transfer, but
it was called the Stampinator 480.
Stampinator 480
because it did
480 transfers first time we ran it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many people have been confused about that over the course of time. I think it's the millimeters of the unit, and no, it's 480 transfers an hour. And I remember hearing that and like, oh, back then transfers weren't that good, especially for T-shirts.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing like, okay, great, you just ruined 480 T-shirts.
Well, actually, we did because a lot of the transfers we did were from Transfer Express, and they were all the screen printed transfers.
Yeah.
Right. So we did a lot of numbers. So we were doing a lot of team jerseys for football, lacrosse.
Yeah.
We would do a 2-color print and a 2-color transfer screen print all in one step. We'd print, do the transfer, stamp cure it. We never ran the shirt through the dryer. We were using all our inks at the time was one stroke.
Was this back with the same company, the bigger company?
The same company, yeah. Yep.
And so you had 2 Stampinators at that company, or how many did you?
I had 2 Stampinators. We actually, and then we were printing. We had a Challenger and a 1618. And one of the flashes went down. We were printing, it was for a company that was flag football. And we had to get the job completed. And I threw a Stampinator in there, and we're stamping the underbase. And I wasn't thinking about mat and fibers.
Yeah.
And we ran it like that for a while. And then I pulled it back out and went back to transfers. And then at Fort Worth, that's when you were like, hey, I really don't care about transfers. Will it mat fibers and smooth the shirt? And that's kind of how we connected and got it started.
Yeah, because we had the rock iron, but it was expensive. It didn't sell, it didn't flash. You had to flash and then iron, know. So I was like, maybe you could combine a flash and this could do that. And it does an incredible job of screen printing.
Absolutely. Look, when you and I'm not going to knock anybody's product, right? But when I look at the Stampinator, what it does versus other products on the market, you have your irons. A lot of those, sometimes they'll pull the registration out of place, especially if you're in an
You have to
environment
use
where it's
a
hot.
lot more adhesive
Absolutely.
on that.
And then when if you're using a spray web adhesive or just a standard aerosol spray web or the mist, the heat, it just gels up. So the water-based adhesive actually works really well. And what's great about the Stampinator is when you're printing a t-shirt, most of your t-shirts have moisture.
Yeah.
So it reactivates the
the water-based glue.
The water-based glue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it mats the fibers. It doesn't move the shirt. It presses the shirt more into the platen.
Yeah.
So it makes a better base for the rest of the prints.
Yeah. And even though, a lot of people ask when it's pressing into the shirt, is it spreading the ink? And it doesn't.
No.
So
because as soon as if you have it set right, as soon as it hits the ink, it gels it.
yeah, I mean, you can literally gel it in 1.5 seconds with the stamp.
So you don't really
330.
use, I mean, maybe if you're just putting way too much ink down, you don't really lose definition or anything like that.
No.
There's a lot of different ways. I think we've come up with like 5 different ways. At Made Lab, we teach people how to use the Stampinator. My partners, when I started that company, I didn't start the company, I came into the company and we started doing classes like, we got to get the Stampinators on. And they're like, well, we've tried one, but, and as soon as we plugged them in, they love it. Like, and they will spec it on every job now, that we produce for a trade show or do for a class. We use it one of 2 ways. We either use it for pre-matting. So if you want more of the traditional screen print feel, which a lot of like Brett's customers do, they want like that little bit rougher feel. They'll use it to pre-mat the garment, which just essentially just takes it, flattens it into the, flattens it, heats it up, flattens it into the platen, and then they print it. I prefer to use it getting a little bit smoother feel as a flash stamp, so that you're using it like you were doing when matting the fibers and the base at the same time.
Yeah, well, look, when I was in, I had a smaller place when I had left the company, and I left there in 2016, 17, right around there, and we got a rock press, and I changed out the pallets. I put the rubber on top of the pallets, and I've printed almost over 350,000 shirts out of that place without a gas dryer or electric dryer, and we stamp cured at the end of the print run. It's
crazy. There are some shops, and I remember the excitement that I had when you told me that.
Yeah.
Because essentially, like a rock press in a screen printing shop, rock press doesn't take a whole lot of electricity.
No.
Takes like 7-8 amps, and air compressor, especially for the U presses, doesn't take a whole lot of electricity. Now we have the E press that the air compressor is built into it, so you're talking like 10 amps, But what takes electricity is either your dryers or your flashes, and they take a lot. Like a quartz flash takes 50 amps of electricity.
Yeah, and every time that hits and comes on, that's where the sucks.
So now you're talking a dryer. 2 quartz flashes on a press and a dryer, you're upwards of 200 amps.
Yeah.
Where the Stampinator takes like what, 20 amps?
It draws 17 on a 30 amp breaker.
20 amps. So you're into that whole press for 50 amps. You don't even need a dryer.
No.
And so the idea of that is like literally you could put this thing in your garage because it's single phase.
You could.
And you're now popping on a Rock E or a Rock U, a 10, 11 foot square footprint and 2 stamps. No dryer.
You can crush it.
You can crush it. That's crazy. That would not be possible without that device. And you get a better quality shirt.
Yeah. Well, look, right now we still print that way, right? So we'll run a job. We stamp all of our left chest. So if we're printing, it doesn't matter if we're printing 72 or 10,000 shirts. The left chest gets stamped at the end of the print run for 4 seconds. It never goes to the dryer. And, as long as everything's level, you're going to get a nice, solid cure on your shirt.
But you use, like, if you're doing that job right there, you would just use the dryer?
Yeah. So depending on what we're doing, like we would run this through the dryer. But the reason we do the left chest, because a lot of times we're doing a back print, right? So when we print the back and it goes through and you're stacking the shirts, let's just say we didn't get a full cure because they didn't hit it for 4 seconds. All that heat that's stacked up on on those shirts, it's going to cure that ink, right? From all the heat that you have and the heat when it runs through the dryer. If you have a gas dryer that has airflow, you're going to get a cure on both sides.
Yeah.
We've tested, we've done it. It works. And I was printing retail shirts, and even corporate, and no one has ever had a problem or an issue with anything that we put out. So it's just really, taking the time of utilizing the stamp at its fullest and understanding how it works, and not, I always say it is a plug and play unit. You can put it in, but if you're not using your ink straight from the bucket and you're mixing them, or the company's buying cheap inks, all that varies, so
variables. It makes the variables, because it does it so quickly, it makes the variables more important to pay attention
Absolutely.
to. Think about a flash. If you're a screen printer and you've learned how to modify your flash, you raise it up sometimes, you lower it, like I'm talking about, just a manual, just infrared flash.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit, sometimes you overgel. If you overgel, it's all those same variables apply to the Stampinator, but instead of having 10 seconds to figure it out, you have to figure that out in a couple seconds, And so if you're over flashing, that means you're curing the ink, and then your overprint won't stick to it. If you're under flashing, your ink's going to be wet. Either way, the ink's coming off and coming onto the Teflon.
Yeah.
Did the Stampinator always have that Teflon sheet on it?
The stamp, yeah. So we basically, in the beginning, we were spraying adhesive up onto the pallet, and then we put the rollers on, and it has nice tension. So yeah, going back to what you're talking about, if you have too much temp, you're going to get the gel where the ink will stick.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you don't have enough, then you'll notice that it's a little bit wet. Now, in a perfect environment and you're stamping, sometimes you'll get a little haze, and it really depends on the ink that you're using. If you're using I find
the haze is okay.
The haze is okay. Yeah, it's you can keep it on and run the next job, and it's not going to pick up or leave any marking on any of the garments.
The haze is kind of like the equivalent of when you touch ink and it's a little sticky. Maybe a little haze comes off on your
I find
finger.
that it's like almost like a chalky type, because if you just take a t-shirt and rub it, it'll just kind of flake right off. And it's not much. It's very, very light, for the most part. But I find that when we're running like a low cure ink, but it's important when you're running the stamp, if you're using your standard plastisols and it's 330 to cure it, well, you want to be right around between 330 and 315 for that cure on that, or to gel your underbase. If you're running a low cure and your inks are 270, you want to be right in that area, 270, 260.
So you're trying to, you basically set the flash temp for the cure-ish temp of the stamp?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. There's, I've got the opportunity to come out to a couple of the classes that you've done and learned a lot on how to dial in the parameters of that. So for the first 3 or 4 years of the stamp, we sold a decent amount with the Rock when Ryonet was still doing Rock directly before Rock US split out. And then we've done a lot more with Rock US since Ryonet's split out.
Yeah.
Since we split out of Ryonet. But it was traditionally used for screen printing. There may have been a few people that have used it for transfers the way it was invented.
Yeah.
Until 2020 came around, and then all of a sudden, transfers became a big deal again.
Yeah, they totally exploded.
They went up to the, there's so many of them being done. So it's so crazy to see it come full circle, the original idea, going into a different idea, but then now with transfer automation. How have you seen DTF change what the Stampinator can do? Well, first of all, I should say, how have you seen DTF change the industry, or DFT?
Well, DTF is... it's unbelievable. Look, it was in 2020, right? Right after COVID, DTF exploded. You saw it all over TikTok, all over Instagram, Facebook, and you couldn't find help. So people were just kind of like, hey, let's make this transition, see how it works. And it's only getting better. It literally is unbelievable. But if you utilize a DTF transfer in the manner of your garment color, use the negative space, and it just gives you the best hand. So if you have all black, a black outline with all color, punch it, and it's going on a black shirt, punch out the black and put that on the shirt, and it just allows it to breathe a lot better, and it gives you that much better hand. But what I find with the Stampinator is, I feel like, when we're stamping and we're running two, we'll do the pre and then the post, and we'll peel and then hit again. It really softens that transfer out, and it really just embeds it into the garment at 480 pieces an hour, which is amazing.
Wow.
And there's no screen cleaning, there's no prepping. It's just your transfers come in. If they're not pre-cut, you got to cut them. But overall, I think within this industry, DTF really has a place. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah, it's allowed a lot of people, and Ryonet, we kind of sat on the sideline for a long time just to see, like, there were so many of the printers that were not good, and as a supplier, not a decorator, if you're going to sell a piece of equipment, you got to stand behind that.
Sure.
We give our Riley Hopkins, great warranties, and it's, if you can't stand behind it, then
why make it?
Yeah. And so there are so many generations of those printers that came in from overseas that did not work. And so we kind of sat on the sidelines. Now we just launched a partnership with Omni that is doing really, a series of entry level, mid-level, and then kind of more advanced, DFT printers. And it's been really cool to see how many of our current customers are still engaged with it. I mean, it's still, I think, on the front end of that whole technology curve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think if you look at how it progressed in the last 4 years, technology-wise, it's unbelievable. It truly is.
Some of the transfers we transferred at class and stuff were incredible. And so, but it wasn't as easy. I remember like playing around with the Supercolor transfers at Main Lab and the Stampinator and like trying to get them to press was not easy to figure out because you can't just put a Stampinator on your auto. And we'll get to the manual Stampinator, which applies to a huge market, especially our core kind of customer base at Ryonet. You can't just put a Stampinator on it and like start transferring. And so you have to do some different stuff. So what do you have to do with your auto or manual press just to be able to successfully heat transfer on specifically DTF?
Yeah, so to do that, we have these top cover pallets that have the sponge rubber. And we have a rubber that
What's sponge rubber?
Sponge rubber is what you find on your traditional heat press.
Okay, so it's basically you're turning your screen printing press into the base, the platen, instead of having a flat board or a small gum rubber, I think it's called, like the M&R.
The M&R gum rubber, the gum.
So it doesn't give enough cushion, right? So you need something that is dense enough to and retains heat to support that transfer from the base.
Yeah, so what I have found, when you look at your traditional heat press, the recovery time is about 12 seconds to 15 seconds. So that means by the time you lift up, you heat press your shirt, you lift up the machine, you pull your shirt off, you load the next one. It's recovered that it's going to go back.
Okay, so you're taking your heat away from your element.
Taking the heat away from the element.
It's going in, it's transferring into the shirt.
You're at 335, maybe it's sucked out 15 degrees.
And so it's got to pop back up and it's got to recover back to that 330.
Exactly.
In order for you to come hit. That's because a lot of heat presses are 110 volt, they're lower. Yeah. Voltage, have less power to it. How fast does the Stampinator recover?
1.5 seconds.
Oh, because it's...
So we're like 3,500 watts with our unit. And that was like, and to make that work, on an automatic press, that was really important to make it have the recovery time of 1.5 seconds. So when you look at transfers, like, let's just talk about like Supercolor transfer. A lot of people don't realize, and not saying that, the manufacturers aren't, giving enough education on how to peel their transfers, but Supercolor was a very hard transfer to peel when it first came out.
Yeah, and they've done some development work on their paper that have made it easier.
Yeah, and one of the great things, like with our sponge rubber, it retains about 120 degrees.
Okay.
So it's not hot on the outside, but it's the temperature's within the inside. And
so it's assisting that heat press.
Absolutely. So
and it's really dense.
Yeah, it's really dense.
And you cannot... I've tried it. You can buy some rubbers on Amazon.
It won't work.
And it works for maybe a little bit.
It breaks down.
Yeah. I would say it is a big investment, because it's not cheap rubber. And so, but also what you've done with that platen cover is it's not just pop it on and you don't have to change anything on your press. It takes, 3 seconds.
Yeah. When you see an automated, heat press and you think of your automatic and you have 2 Stampinators and you just put these top covers on for let's call it $12,000 with 2 roughly. That's not a bad entry level for doing, 480 to 600 transfers an hour.
Yeah.
And what's great about it is you just block out a day and knock out 3,000 transfers, right?
Yeah. So that's bringing us up to now the Stampinator has essentially 5 different uses on automatic press. So we do, and we teach this at Maine, and we kind of show this in some of the classes that we do. We start out with a pre-press, if you want to give that traditional screen printing feel, but especially works great on fleece.
Yep.
Or you can do a flash, so flash stamp, so you're flashing as a stamp. You can use it as a transfer press on, like what we were saying right there.
Yep.
You can do a post. Do you ever post hit it?
I do. So we'll do the post, again, when we're doing that cure. And what I find is if you do the post, so I have some shops where they're printing maybe 8, 9 colors, 10 colors, and have, a 50 or 16 color press. They'll put a stamp at the end.
Yeah.
So it just dries all the ink, but so when they're running fast, it's not springing back and leaving, like a smudge. But what's great about it is the shirt is even softer when you hit it at the end.
Yeah.
You hit the underbase, it really makes a difference in the print and in the feel. But that post, it just really softens it up.
Do you use a Teflon? Because doesn't that leave it shiny?
So at the end of the print run, we'll do a piece of craft paper.
Okay,
and
like the stuff from Stalls?
Yeah, so we basically Velcro, and we'll put adhesive Velcro on the backside of the Stampinator on the rails, and then staple Velcro to it.
So that leaves it like a matte.
And it gives you that matte finish.
Yeah.
And you get about 1,200 to 1,500 prints out of it, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So we're working on getting that in a roll where it can be, have it on a roll with on a stamp.
So sometimes post-press, then put it in the dryer, and then sometimes post-press cure it, which slows it down. How long will the Stampinator cure ink in if you just don't want to put it through the dryer?
We're looking like between 4 and 7 seconds, roughly, depending on your press and how big your press is.
Yeah, when we do the PPAI, or we take a rock, I know one of our clients, 730 Printing, took a rock around the country this summer.
That was awesome.
We did it out here at Ryonet, and to use 2 Stampinators and no dryer, again, just a little, just toe behind generator. And
your print multicolor on that, right?
Yeah, multicolor. It was I was in Arizona, it was 130 degrees out. The Stampinator, we had to turn it down. It was getting too hot. Like, it was so hot just because the ink, but it was.
That's awesome.
So you kind of have to dial that in when it comes to, it was pulling the ink up because the ink was getting too hot. You just turn the Stampinator down because the outside ambient temperature in your shop was different. I was actually talking to Lee Stewart yesterday, who uses Stampinator. We did that base camp, and you kind of compared and using that roller versus the standard, thin thread, and then the Stampinator. And he said once summer came around that his shop changed quite a bit because they're so humid up there in the plains. Have you noticed that ambient temperature does change how you work with the Stampinator?
Here's the thing. So when you're using the stamp and you're printing, like if we're using a low cure ink, and if I don't base it out and you stamp it, you get tack, right? So the ink's dry, but for some reason it wants to stick to the back of the screen.
So base it out, you put a little bit of base in it?
Oh yeah, we'll do soft hand. No reducer. Reducer is the worst thing you can use.
Soft hand, like what, 5%?
Yeah, or 10, 15%, depending on what you're doing, right? And when we do that, and you have the temps outside where it's, look, in Maryland, it was 105 heat index with 99% humidity.
And you don't have an air conditioner.
No.
That's hot.
No AC, but you have to put cooling fans, right? So we have our Home Depot fans, and we just kind of blow them right after the flash. And you have to stop, let it go for about maybe 3 seconds. You run on a 3-second delay, and it works well. If you turn the Stampinator off and you use a flash, it's the same. You get the same effect.
So
it's
maybe the flash is a little bit more forgiving because it's not touching the ink.
Well, if you have a smart flash, yes. If you don't have a smart flash and you're using your standard flash, the temperature, you're over curing it, or you're just overheating the shirt at that point, right? and then you're definitely going to get a tack and a stick. But I'll go into shops and they're printing, and you'll hear the screens are just popping, and I'm just like,
yeah.
I'm like, a little bit of soft hand will actually make a difference in that print run.
That's a good tip there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soft
Fashion
hand.
soft. Yeah.
Yep.
So getting to the point, a lot of people, there's a lot of automatic presses out there, but there's way more manual presses out there. And I know with the Ryonet core customer, the person that started in their garage, either they are starting on a manual, they still have their manual, or they've transitioned to auto and their manual sitting in the corner. Tell me about where the manual Stampinator came from, how it works. It's kind of what we'll show the class a little bit here later.
Yeah. So the manual Stampinator was, people were asking like, hey, that's great. We need one for the manual. You got the auto, but I'm a manual printer. And, it was like everybody had this idea of, hey, take the manual or the auto stamp and put it in the print head and pull it down.
It's so heavy. It's like 65 pounds.
And I'm like, and I'm just
50,
thinking
48 pounds.
Somebody's going to bring it down and hot iron their hand or, whatever. And
oh, yeah. I've had a lot of screen printers that have said, can I just put a heat press in a screen? It's like, wow, it's heavy. And yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it was like, all right, I'm looking at the whole manual press and the auto stamp. And I'm thinking, we need to come up with something that doesn't bolt to the floor. It's, it's not something that somebody has to go and mount into the floor as a screen printer. Most people don't have, they're not savvy enough to do that. And nobody wants to drill in their garage, in the floor. So the idea was, hey, why not have it where it compresses on itself and put the support underneath of the pallet arm.
So there's a downside support here.
Yep. So we have downside support.
And then the platen moves underneath it, and then it comes and meets the two.
Yep. And we leave just a little bit of a gap, like maybe a 1/16 to a quarter of an or an eighth of an inch for the shirt to go under. And then the same thing for a sweatshirt. And what's great about most manual presses, they're all pretty forgiving. They have a little bit of flex in them. So it's just enough that it's not going to disrupt your piece of equipment, right? And with very little pressure for mounting your fibers on your t-shirt. And what's great about it, now you can convert your manual into a DTF printer as well.
So this is, again, a game changer because you can use this. So if we're thinking about a shop, you have a flash and you have a final cure, two heating devices.
Yeah, well, so let's go back to the flash real quick.
Yeah.
So today,
here, I walked in and it was like
here today at Ryonet screen print classes.
Spicy.
They had a fire.
Was it a fire?
Oh, that pallet fried. You didn't see it?
Well, I smelled it. I heard about it.
It was black. So,
but it didn't catch on fire.
Here's what it is. If you're a manual guy and you're printing,
worry.
And I'm going to tell you,
the sprinklers were not activated.
And I will tell you a quick story. A manual printer, okay, and a flash. And you're in your garage. I knew a guy going back to the Ravens because he had a design called Ball So Hard that Terrell Suggs had came out. It was his idea, Ball So Hard. So everybody's printing these shirts, and he got a copyright, and he's sending all these cease and desist to all these companies. Anyway, wooden pallets. I'm not sure what press it was. Caught fire, burnt his entire house down.
Was he in it?
No, he left the flash on.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do it. But what's great about the Stampinator, you can leave the Stampinator. It can sit on that board, and you will not get a fire whatsoever.
I can attest to that because at that base camp with Lee Stewart, that happened.
How that happened?
Well, when you turn off a rock press and you shut the air conditioning off.
The air compressor?
Yeah, the air compressor. The head, so he has a next, and so all the heads are individually controlled by air cylinder.
Yeah.
And the air cylinder, when there's air activated, it holds it up, and then it pushes it down. Well, it was up when we left. We forgot to turn it off, and then because the Stampinator is heavy, it just slowly dragged it down. And then we got in the next day, and the Stampinator's on, sitting on a platen.
Yeah.
On a shirt. There was a shirt on it. We had left shirts on the press. So it was the most cured shirt ever.
Yeah.
It didn't ruin the platen. It didn't catch on fire. because it's sitting there at 300 degrees. It's like 300 degrees it's hot enough to start a fire, but it's not like 600 degrees or 800 degrees like a flash.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we were lucky. I wouldn't recommend it. I would plug it. His stamp is not plugged into his press. It's externally powered.
Yeah.
If you plug it into your press, which is super easy to do, if you turn off your press, it shuts it off. So that's how I would say. But
we had this Russ McCoy, Art Benton in Kansas, Missouri. They left theirs on for the entire weekend and shut the air off.
Oh,
and they came in on Monday, and he was like, the paper was brown, but everything else, it was fine, So I was thanks for being my guinea pig on that one.
Wouldn't recommend doing it. So if I'm a screen printer, again, small shop, I got to get a flash dryer and I got to get a conveyor dryer in my garage. So the Stampinator, workflow wise, I have my print station, I have my flash, and then I have my cool downs, and then it comes back around. So you can hit that as a flash for a second and a half, right? Do you have different settings on it? Like, so if I hit it for a second and a half and I don't have a conveyor dryer and then I hit it, then I need to cure it for 7 seconds. So I'm using it as both.
Yeah.
Because you activate it with the foot pedal, right?
Yeah. So you can if, let's say you want to cure it at 7 seconds, but you're printing in your underbase, you want to go around quickly at 1.5 seconds. Hit the foot pedal and then hit it again. Yeah. And that's your 1.5 seconds.
Okay,
right?
So you just double tap it.
Double tap it. Mm-hmm. If you want to let the full cure, just let the foot pedal hit it once and let it cure.
The timer in the machine knows it comes down. So, because I know on the automatic presses, a lot of people ask, like, why is there a timer there? And it's really just because it's the function of the heating element control panel from George Knight. You don't actually need the timer in the automatic version.
No.
The press controls the time.
Correct.
Whether it's really nice, I love it on the ovals, the ecos, the next machines, because each head you can control. It has stamp function. It goes, I want to stamp for 3 seconds or 4 seconds. Whereas a U or any of the lift up presses, like a lot of the M&R presses, you have to, or Workhorse or Anatol, you have to use the platen uptime to actually press it. But the timer works on the manual, so you set it for 7 seconds, 4 seconds. What do you do for DTF?
Based on whatever the recommendations are. So if we're doing a super color, we'll start off at 12 to 15 seconds. And then as we get going, then we'll speed it up. We'll get down to right around 7 seconds per transfer, so which is it's pretty fast. When you get into so that's your hybrid transfer, that's your digital print with a screen print on the backside, right?
Yep.
Your standard DTF it's all ink base, all your water base inks. A lot of those you can get right down to about 6 seconds.
6 seconds.
Yeah.
One time, do you double it? So 6 seconds, and then you run around, do a post hit?
You can go around, do a post hit, and just keep it going. So like I said, once those the sponge rubber gets up to that 120 mark,
flying.
Yeah, you're cruising.
Because so 60 seconds in an hour, and you're doing something every 6 seconds. But then you got to post press. So it's about 300 an hour.
Yeah. 300.
That's fast. Because on a dual, press or a single press, you're doing 30, 60 an hour. Even if you conservatively say 220, 230 an hour, that's flying.
Yeah. And one of the great things with the manual and the manual stamp, if you have a transfer that's a hot peel, you can go in the opposite direction. So when it comes around, you're peeling it right after the stamp. If you have a cold peel, you go the opposite way. So when it comes around, it's nice and cool. You can go ahead and peel it.
Yeah.
Right. So
now, one of the questions that I get about all these automated presses is, do the transfers fall off as you're spinning?
So on the automated side, yes. And the key to those, we'll use an adhesive spray, which is the K100 or K500. It's an embroidery light tack spray. Yeah, it's a spray right on the garment. So when you do in the world of embroidery, if you're doing a tackle twill, you'll do a running stitch. You'll spray the back of that tackle twill, lay it down so it sticks. So it's not, when the machines move, it's not going to shake. It holds it in place. When you go, a lot of those where you could heat press them. A lot of people back then, you were heat pressing because they had the glue on the backside. to really hold that onto the sweatshirt that you were appliquing, putting your applique onto. So what I found was when we were doing screen printed numbers in 2015, I used that spray and it left no tackiness on the garment. It worked really well.
Does it interfere with the transfer or anything?
Not at all. So if you're going
a little bit
clockwise, right, you're going to spray the left side of the shirt, lay that transfer down so it doesn't blow up. You don't need the entire shirt sprayed.
Well, you also keep in mind that the ink has adhesive in it.
Yeah.
So most of the time, I have not seen them fly off.
A large print, it's not going to fly off, but some of the smaller ones, it might.
Just use a little bit of spray and that's solved.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking at like that hybrid transfer, it's more of a grittier back, whereas a DTF printer,
it's pretty slick.
It is. Yeah. And it really depends on your dryer temp too. So the higher the dryer, the more that you're going to get more of that slickness out of it. If your temp is a little bit lower on the DTF transfers that are coming through, you'll still feel that a little bit more of the roughness on the backside.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is, so you send, I think, are you still sending a shirt out with every unit?
Yeah, pretty much.
So this is one that you actually use it as a test. You test every unit.
Yeah. So we basically will test every unit and we'll have a shirt set up. This shirt here we don't test with this shirt. This is just a shirt that we print, we'll put in there.
Okay.
But we have one test and improve with all the squares that we're actually going to do in the class tomorrow.
Okay.
And it just shows how level the Stampinator is on the press of giving you that super smooth surface.
It is, I mean, this shirt is phenomenal. Like the print on it's phenomenal. It's got a great hand feel. I think what was the stamp used? Is it a flash stamp on this one?
We did, yeah.
Yeah. How often are you doing classes out there?
Well, we stopped in July and August or June, July, and August because of temp. So thinking about firing up another class in November.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're in. Did I say November? December.
December.
Yeah.
What's next?
Revolution.
What is the revolution? The Stampinator revolution?
So the Stampinator Revolution it's just basically a straight inline heat press dual stamps, all DTF. So we're going to have a version where it's going to be
transfers or
transfer.
But it's not a screen printing press.
It's not a screen printing press.
So it's the first Stampinator that's just specifically designed for the transfer market.
Yeah, absolutely. With a really good price point that I think everyone's going to love. Going back to the Stampinator, why I created the Stampinator, to me, the one thing for me was it was important to have a product that was American made, right? And working with companies that were able to manufacture here in the States.
Yeah.
And, and to me, it's just because we're all giving someone a job, right?
Yeah.
Which to me is rewarding. And that was always important to me to have something that was a good quality product. So why not come out with something even better than the manual stamp, the auto stamp, or just as good as the manual stamp and the auto stamp? And there it is, the Revolution.
That's awesome. I think so. It'll be, you have the Stampinator Auto or the 480, you have the Stampinator M, the manual, and then you have the Stampinator Revolution for those who are just doing more volume in the transfer world.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you partner with products like as a screen print company, you're buying yourself a Mamaki or the Omni, any type of DTF output machine, you can have that. And we have a company, Avid, up in Canada, and he is running the Mamaki, and it's all enclosed. It's AC, he has humidifiers in there. It's really well put together. A rock press right outside with 2 stamps, and they're transferring all day long.
Do they do a Stampinator M as well, or?
They don't have a Stampinator M yet.
Yeah,
no.
So they're just using their rock press essentially a transfer press. There was actually a customer that just reached out that literally has never printed on the rock press. It's only been used for transfers.
Yeah, and we have a few of those.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I've also met people that have put rock presses in malls that don't have a conveyor dryer.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive too, right?
It's really cool what this product has allowed, given the print shop the flexibility to do. But what's even cooler is the quality of the shirt it creates.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
We were kind of going back and forth of this in class because I was like, you know, after teaching like at Made Lab and learning from some of the partners there, they're like screen print like geeks, and like that you have to do everything right. Like you have the right OEM, the right settings, the right amount of ink in the screen, the right speed of the squeegee, and you're just like going, well, I mean, it's not like how we do it at Made Lab. We're like, oh, it works fine.
Yeah. You know, so here's the thing. Bronco and I, we had that conversation, right?
Yeah.
So Bronco does a lot of filming for Stampinator, which he does a fantastic job. But he came in and he was like, we had the film, but we had a job we had to do, and it was like 7 colors, and he's just like, holy crap! Like you just set that thing up like in like 30 seconds. Like I'm amazed. It was unbelievable.
Because it's on a rock press,
right? On a rock press, right? We on an eco, and so we get the job set up, and he's talking about like, you know, what do you do with your inks and all this? And I'm like, I don't get into all that crap, chemistry and all that. I just basically, you know, for me, I'm just like every other screen printer. We're slinging shirts. We need to get them on the press and out the door. Nobody needs to know what molecules are in this and that. You know, let's just print the shirts and move forward and get them out the door, right? But that's every screen printer.
Yeah.
You know, they literally buy the Stampinator. I can contest to this because I've done it with equipment. I don't read the instructions, just throw it on there and I'm figuring it out, right? Like, this is how we're going to run. Let's do it.
Unfortunately, I have seen a lot of Stampinators on shelves. And when I come in, I was like, why is it on a shelf? And why do we don't know how to use it? We can do this. And it's like, just teaching how to properly set it in your stage, like it comes off the shelf, it gets on the press, it gets used. It is, I don't know why, like you wouldn't want to use, because you can, it allows you to go a lot faster. It allows you to get a much better result. It allows you to essentially cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you can get a really good print. It just takes a long time, you know. Yeah. You can get that quality of print with water-based, you know, or HSA.
Absolutely.
You know, or maybe like super high tension screens and like the perfect OEM and all that stuff. But like, or you could just hit it with a stamp and you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
Look,
standard mesh screen.
When I walk into a shop or I hear about a shop that has a stamp that's been on the shelf and they're not using it, I actually understand. I get it. You know, you're busy. You don't have time to really think about how it's going to work. We've all been there. Like even when I switched from, you know, a mouse to back in the early 2000s, the Wacom. I got that, right? It sat there for 6 months. I'm like, this thing sucks, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And then one day I'm like, I got to pull this thing out. I've been using it ever since, right? That's how the customer is with the Stampinator.
Yeah, once they get it on, it's like...
Once it's on, they totally realize, like, wow, this is a game changer. And, you know, look, it's been really awesome, right? Like growing, Stampin', and Slant, and partnering with you guys. You know, Rock has been phenomenal towards the Stampinator. And I've met a lot of really good people who literally come up to me and are like, man, can you sign my shirt, or can I get a picture with you? Like, you've changed how we print. Yeah. Like, it's pretty awesome to hear that, you know, like it's really cool.
What really aligns with all of our companies, and Ryonet really started this with kind of our Project 376, is like kind of more sustainability in our industry. You know, you mentioned all the crappy chemicals. One of my mentors in screen printing, Marvin, died of chemical exposure. You know, eventually it got to his liver years after it happened. And you know, so we've always had like that initiative to use greener products, be more sustainable, like our All Made shirt line, you know, more sustainable shirts. The most sustainable shirt is a good shirt, the shirt that does not get thrown out. Yeah. You know, and so that is really what the Stampinator does for that. It aligns with that side, you know, 100%. That's like the first and foremost. And then you talk about using less electricity, you know, you talk about, you know, you having less waste, you know, and stuff like that. So all those things, it not only makes a print better, but it's more sustainable in your shop.
Yeah. I mean, look, I just want to go back to, you know, the chemical use. And when I go into shops, and I'm just as guilty as everyone else, you know, wear gloves, and, you know, if it says wear a mask, wear a mask. But I am that guy that I think of like, am I exposed? Because I don't wear gloves. I've never have worn gloves or have done anything that's protected my health, right? And I was using chemicals back then when it was just like, woo.
Yeah, just dip your hand in and I've seen some bad stuff, and it's sad because it can especially for different types of people that have different types of immune systems. It can really screw people up.
Yeah, and even though that, the chemicals have changed and they're more eco-friendly, they're eco-friendly for the environment, that you can put down the drain to a certain extent, but they're still harmful to you because
wouldn't drink it.
You don't have to drink the chemical. That's the thing. It just absorbs through your hand.
Yeah.
So one thing, my father has Parkinson's, and he was a sales manager for this company. They were a fasteners company and nuts and bolts hardware. And then they started selling chemicals, and he pretty much feels like he has Parkinson's because of the chemicals that he was out, just doing demos with, whether it was a graffiti remover or a treatment for your
graffiti remover is very similar to plastisol removers that we use.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of the companies that make plastisol removers make graffiti removers too.
Yeah. So when I go in the companies that are running screen opener out of the aerosol can,
I hate that.
That is the worst thing you can have in your shop.
Yeah.
Right. Highly flammable. Right. Not good to breathe in. It's just, if something sounds like it's really good and too good to be true, don't even buy it.
Yeah.
Right. On the chemical side.
There's tons of different ways to fix that problem.
Totally.
And yes, it flashes up, but it gives me such a headache. And the guy that, my mentor, he would use that stuff like it's going out of style. We'd be getting ready for a class. I'd be like, oh man, 7 o'clock in the morning. Like, why did you use screen opener?
You can turn the fans on, open the doors, especially when they run something through the dryer with the chemical. It's like instant headache.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I mean, you've given a lot of good advice. I like the advice that you've given on the chemical. You had some really good advice on, what was it that kind of caught my ear? I can't remember. I have to go back in that section of the podcast.
Of what? In the printing side?
Yeah, the printing side.
Well, so we're starting a podcast, Stampinator Live.
Oh, nice.
And the best part about it is we have, we'll do the hot stamp tip of the day, right? That we'll put out.
Nice.
And what I'm putting out is things that are going to benefit people within their shops. So like the one thing I think that I showed you guys in one of our screen print classes, when I go out to a shop, I hear, there's a guy sitting under the press and I hear him say, hey, Dave, come over here and point out where that pinhole is.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, man, I see so many people on their hands and knees looking up under the screen for that little speck of light, right? That they're never going to find. And it's so simple. You print your shirt, you see the pinhole, take a piece of Scotch tape, pull it out, flip it over, so you think of the guy cleaning the screen so he can have an easy peel. But you lay that down on your shirt, you print the shirt, now your pinhole, the Scotch tape is sticking to the scrone, pinhole's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't have to get down and all that stuff.
You're not down on your hands and knees looking at things, right? So I got a lot of good tips that we do. Like one that I need to put out there was, I had a ding in my pallet, right? Somebody had dropped the pallet. So I'm like, I'm going to hit the auto body shop. I got some putty, put it in, sanded it down.
Like some Bondo?
Yeah, Bondo, super smooth, right? Most people don't know that and to do things like that.
Yeah.
So if you're using, some of the other things that we do, I probably shouldn't say this because Ryonet and their tape, we don't tape our screens up, so that's
eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly.
If you can avoid, how do you not tape screens?
Because look, if you're printing 1,000 shirts or 500, whatever it is, there's only so much ink that's going to be contained between the squeegee and flood bar.
Yeah.
It all just comes out, right? Just load in as needed, right? So this way you're not tearing all the tape out. It's not waste to the environment.
Yeah.
And that's the other part on the DTF side. When we're doing DTF transfers of like 200 or 300 pieces, like where is all this waste going to?
Have you found a place to recycle that?
So we basically have a dumpster or the company that we use recycles. We pay extra for our dumpster, but they sort the trash when it comes out.
Have they complained about that at all, or no?
No, they only complain about buckets with ink in them.
Yeah, you can't recycle that. Every single part of this process, we were doing kind of a deep dive on DFT yesterday, and it's like you can be super wasteful with screen printing, like the example of using tape or not using tape. You know, tape's a very, very wasteful part of the process. And some people double tape their screens. They tape it on the front side and the back side.
It's expensive.
Yeah, and it's expensive. It's time consuming, and you cannot recycle tape. It's got ink on it. It's sticky. So, you know, you can be an eco-friendly screen printer, or you can be a very wasteful screen printer. You can be, you know, eco-friendly probably with DFT, and you can be wasteful with it. So, you know, it does add that additional carrier sheet, but I think if you are smart with it and you work with your municipality to recycle it, it's not, you know.
You know, when I made that change, this was back when I was in the other company and when we were doing a good amount of business. I was looking at the expenses one day and I'm just like, at the end of the year, I'm like, holy shit, we spent like $4,800 on tape.
Yeah.
Like, we're cutting this. And then it was like
vacation.
And then paper. Like we're printing out all these orders. Like, we're doing an iPad at every press.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we ended up doing. Yeah, absolutely.
Smart.
Yeah. Because it's just, I mean, it's good for the environment. And it takes away that time of having somebody tear that tape off. And, you know, nobody likes to tear tape off a screen when there's ink all over it, right?
Yep. Well, thanks for the screen printing tips. Thanks for the history and the ideas that, like, as a screen printer, you could start a business, you could patent an idea, you could then end up working with some of the biggest, you know, companies in the industry to get that idea out there through distribution. I mean, pretty much your stamp works on every press out there, right?
Every press on the market.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's really cool. Well, congratulations. Thanks for changing the game for us as screen printers. I absolutely love the product and what it does for the environment, the quality of a shirt. And as we get into transfers, the human potential of wasted time sitting behind a manual heat press.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Once again, thank you. I really appreciate everything that Ryonet and Rock has done for the Stampinator.
Rock on, man.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.